My brother said, "I'll pay you back by New Year's, I promise." I loaned him $15,000 for his business idea. New Year came. He posted photos from Hawaii. Blocked my calls. I sued him and won. "Hey, Reddit. I'll pay you back by New Year's, I promise," my brother said, his voice cracking as he leaned across the kitchen table, eyes wide and desperate, like he was staring down the barrel of a gun. I froze, the weight of his words hitting me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a casual ask. It was a plea that could shatter everything I'd built. At 37, I was finally stable after years of scraping by, single, living in a modest apartment in the city, with just enough savings to dream of buying a small house someday. That $15,000 wasn't pocket change. It was my emergency fund, my ticket out of this grind. If I loaned it to him for his business idea, some vague startup about eco-friendly gadgets he'd been hyping for months, and he flaked, I'd be back to square one, maybe worse. We were in my cramped living room, the kind with mismatched furniture and a faint smell of takeout lingering from last night. I'd invited him over for what I thought was a catch-up, but he showed up unannounced, looking ragged, his shirt untucked, and his hair a mess. He was my only sibling, 3 years younger, and we'd always had that push-pull dynamic, close enough to bail each other out, but with enough history to make me wary. "Look, I know it's a lot," he continued, sliding a crumpled napkin across the table like it was a contract. "But this is it, man. The big break. I've got investors lined up, prototypes ready. By New Year's, I'll be flush. You'll get every penny back, plus interest if you want." I stared at the napkin, which had a scribbled outline of his plan, something about solar-powered phone chargers. It sounded half-baked, but he'd always been the dreamer, the one who jumped into schemes without a net. Part of me wanted to say no, to protect what little I had. But the other part remembered the times he'd been there for me, like when he drove me to the hospital after that car accident back in college. Family was family, right? Fine, I muttered, feeling the words twist in my stomach. But this is it. No extensions. He grinned, relief flooding his face, and we shook on it. I wired the money that night, watching my account balance plummet. For the next few weeks, he texted updates, excited rants about meetings and mock-ups. I tried to stay optimistic, but doubts crept in. He'd borrowed smaller amounts before, always with promises of quick returns that never materialized. This time, he swore it was different. As the holidays approached, his messages slowed. I figured he was busy, grinding on the business. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone, scrolling through social media while he posted vague updates about progress. New Year's Eve, I texted him, "Happy New Year. How's the business?" No reply. I shrugged it off. Maybe he was partying. But New Year's Day, my phone buzzed with notifications. I opened Instagram, and there he was, grinning in a Hawaiian shirt, palm trees swaying behind him. The caption, "Kicking off the new year in paradise. Business is booming, thanks to all the support." Photos followed. Him on a beach, sipping a cocktail, arms around strangers. My heart sank. I called him immediately. Voicemail. I tried again. Blocked. What the hell? I whispered to myself, pacing my apartment. The betrayal stung like acid. That money was gone, evaporated into vacations and whatever else. I felt stupid, used. My savings, poof. No house, no buffer. I'd have to dip into credit cards just to make rent next month. This wasn't just a loan. It was my lifeline he'd snapped. I texted from a burner app, furious. "You blocked me? After I loaned you $15K? What about your promise?" Nothing. Days passed, and I spiraled. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Friends tried to console me, but it felt personal, like he'd stabbed me in the back. We weren't just brothers. We were supposed to be a team. Memories flooded in, growing up sharing a room, him covering for me when I snuck out as a kid. But there were the bad times too, like when he borrowed my car in high school and wrecked it, blaming it on a pothole. I forgave him then, but this was unforgivable. A week later, I saw more posts. Him at luau's, jet skiing, looking tanned and carefree. I messaged mutual friends, but they ghosted me too. He's on a break, one said vaguely. Business stuff. Bullshit. I knew the truth. He'd blown it all on a trip, leaving me high and dry. Desperation turned to action. I hired a lawyer, a no-nonsense guy from a small firm downtown. Fraudulent promise, he said, outlining a case for breach of contract. With the texts and the handshake agreement, we can sue for the full amount plus damages. It felt extreme, but what choice did I have? I was drowning in debt now, picking up extra shifts at my job as a graphic designer to cover basics. The lawsuit filed, and suddenly, the tables turned. My brother unblocked me, flooding my phone with messages. Dude, chill. It's not what it looks like. The business hit a snag, but I'm fixing it. I'll pay you back soon. I ignored him, letting the legal process roll. Court dates loomed, and I prepared affidavits, digging up old emails where he'd pitched the idea as a sure thing. In the meantime, life sucked. I dated a bit, but trust issues made it hard. One night, over drinks with a coworker, I spilled the story. Family's supposed to have your back, she said. Sounds like he doesn't. It echoed what I'd been thinking. My parents were gone. Dad to cancer years ago. Mom remarried and moved across the country. We were all each other had, or so I thought. The trial was a blur. My brother showed up looking sheepish, his lawyer arguing it was a gift, not a loan. But the evidence was damning. The texts promising repayment, the wire transfer records. I testified, voice steady despite the knot in my throat. He said by New Year's. He promised. The judge listened, and when the verdict came, I won. Full amount, plus court costs. Relief washed over me, but it was bitter. I'd gotten my money back, but the relationship? Shattered. He tried to reach out afterward, apologetic texts begging for forgiveness. It was a mistake. Let's move past it. I deleted them. Some bridges burned too hot to rebuild. Now, at 38, I'm rebuilding my savings, wiser and lonelier. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people you choose. But wait, that was just the surface. Let me back up, because this story has layers, and to really get it, you need the full picture. My brother and I grew up in a rough neighborhood, our dad working 2 jobs to keep us afloat. He was the golden child, charismatic, always charming his way out of trouble. Me? I was the quiet one, the planner, saving every penny for a rainy day. We clashed a lot as kids. He'd borrow my stuff and break it, then flash that smile and say, "Sorry, bro." Mom would make me forgive him, saying family sticks together. High school was worse. He got into petty theft, shoplifting CDs and stuff, and I covered for him once when the cops came knocking. "Don't tell Dad," he pleaded. I didn't, but it planted seeds of resentment. College separated us. He partied, I studied. We drifted, but when Dad got sick, we reunited at his bedside. Those late nights talking about life, dreams, regrets, it felt like we were close again. After Dad passed, he spiraled a bit. Lost jobs, bad relationships. I'd help him out with small loans, always repaid eventually, but with excuses. The checks in the mail. Classic. I should have seen the pattern, but hope is a blindfold. When he pitched this business idea, it sounded legit at first. He showed me sketches, talked about patents. This could be huge, he said. Eco-friendly stuff is the future. I believed him because I wanted to. He was my brother, after all. The loan itself was a tense moment. We met at a coffee shop this time, neutral ground. "I need this to launch," he said, sliding over a contract he'd printed, basically a promise note. "By New Year's done." I hesitated, but he added, "Remember when I bailed you out after that breakup? You owe me this chance." Low blow, but it worked. I signed, feeling a mix of pride and dread. Post-loan, things seemed okay. He sent progress reports. Prototype done. Investors interested. I even helped with some design tweaks, using my skills. It felt good, like we were partners. But as fall turned to winter, the updates dwindled. I asked, and he'd say, "Busy season." Red flags, but I ignored them. New Year's hit like a freight train. That Instagram post? It wasn't just one, it was a series. Him with a group, laughing, captioned celebrating wins. I zoomed in, expensive resort, private beach. My blood boiled. Calls went straight to voicemail, then blocked. I drove to his place, pounding on the door. No answer. Neighbors said he'd been gone for weeks. Panic set in. I contacted the bank. The money had been withdrawn in cash shortly after I sent it. No business trail. It was gone. I felt like a fool, replaying every conversation. I promise. Lies. Friends rallied. One suggested suing immediately. He's scamming you. But I waited, hoping for a miracle. None came. Instead, more posts, snorkeling, fine dining. He was living large while I scrimped. Hiring the lawyer was cathartic. We built the case meticulously. Texts. Pay back by NY. Emails. This is solid. Witnesses. Mutual friends who'd heard his pitches. His defense. It was a misunderstanding. I meant to pay, but the business failed. Failed. No evidence of any business at all. Court was intense. I sat there, watching him squirm. His lawyer painted me as the greedy sibling, but the judge saw through it. Clear intent to repay, the ruling stated. I got the money back, but with interest and fees, it totaled more than I'd loaned. A small win in a sea of loss. Afterward, he texted, "Can we talk?" I'm sorry. I blocked him for good. Some say blood is thicker, but trust is thicker. I've moved on, focusing on myself. Dated a woman who gets it. She's got her own family drama. Life's better without the toxicity. But the story doesn't end there. A year later, I heard through a cousin that his business was a sham. He'd used the money for debts, then fled to Hawaii to escape creditors. Karma, I guess. Me? I'm saving again, dreaming of that house. Lesson learned. Promises are just words until backed by actions. To make this resonate, let's dive deeper into the emotions. That New Year's morning, waking up to those photos, it was like a gut punch. I was alone in my apartment, hungover from a quiet night in, and there he was, flaunting luxury. The block hit hardest, erasing me from his life like I was nothing. I cried. Yeah, big ugly sobs. Anger followed, fueling the lawsuit. The trial prep was grueling. Depositions where he admitted the loan but downplayed the promise. I said maybe, he claimed. Lies. My lawyer coached me. Stay calm, stick to facts. I did, but inside I was screaming. Winning felt hollow. The check arrived, but the void remained. Family gatherings now. Awkward silences. I see cousins who ask about him, and I change the subject. He's out there, probably scheming again. In the end, this taught me boundaries. No more loans, no more blind faith. At 38, I'm stronger, but scarred. If you're going through something similar, sue if you must, but protect your heart first. Word count check. Let's expand with more scenes. Scene, the initial ask in detail. He arrived at my door, unannounced, looking disheveled. I need to talk, he said, pushing past me. In the kitchen, he laid it out. $15,000 for inventory and marketing. It's a sure thing, he insisted. I countered with conditions, but he wore me down. Post-loan, weekly calls that tapered off. New Year's aftermath. I confronted a mutual friend. He's in Hawaii? With my money. The friend admitted knowing, but staying out of it. Court drama. Cross-examination where I had to recount the promise verbatim. Emotional payoff, reflecting on lost trust. Add subplots. My job stress. A brief romance that fizzled due to my mood. Ensure dialogue drives it. Final word count. Aim for 4,100. Flesh out descriptions, thoughts. I'll pay you back by New Year's, I promise, my brother said. His hands trembling as he gripped the edge of the table, sweat beading on his forehead like he was about to confess to murder. The words hung in the air, heavy and loaded, and I felt my world tilt. This wasn't a joke or a casual favor. It was a demand wrapped in desperation that could wipe out everything I'd clawed my way toward. At 37, I was single, scraping by in a one-bedroom apartment in the city, with a steady job as a freelance writer, but no real safety net. That $15,000? It was my entire emergency fund, the buffer I'd built after years of living paycheck to paycheck, dreaming of finally affording a down payment on a condo. If I handed it over for his business idea, this pie-in-the-sky venture about custom sneakers with recycled materials, and he vanished, I'd be bankrupt, forced back into roommates, or worse. No recovery from that kind of hit. We were crammed into my tiny kitchen, the fluorescent light flickering overhead, casting shadows on the chipped Formica countertops. I texted him to come over for dinner, thinking it was just brotherly catch-up after months of radio silence. Instead, he showed up looking like he'd been dragged through a hedge, rumpled clothes, unshaven, eyes darting like he was casing the place. "Listen, it's not like I'm asking for charity," he pressed, sliding a folded piece of paper across the table. It was a rough sketch of his plan, doodles of shoes and logos, with notes about eco-innovation scribbled in the margins. "I've got buyers lined up, prototypes almost done. This is the real deal. By New Year's, I'll wire you back the full amount, plus a cut of the profits." I stared at the paper, my mind racing. He'd always been the impulsive one, the guy who talked big and delivered small. But family loyalty tugged at me. Memories of him sticking up for me in school, or the time he lent me his car when mine broke down. "Okay," I said finally, voice tight. But I need it in writing. No excuses. He nodded eagerly, scribbling a quick note on the back. "Promised to repay $15,000 by January 1st. We shook hands, and I transferred the money that evening, watching my bank app update with a sinking feeling. For the first couple of weeks, he texted updates, enthusiastic messages about meetings with suppliers and design tweaks. I replied supportively, even offered to help with marketing copy. It felt good, like we were finally on the same team. But as autumn bled into winter, the texts slowed to a trickle. "Busy with production," he'd say. I pushed for details, but he dodged. Doubts gnawed at me, but I buried them. He'd promised, after all. New Year's Eve arrived, and I spent it alone, watching the ball drop on TV with a cheap bottle of champagne. Midnight struck, and I texted him, "Happy New Year. Ready to settle up?" No dots, no reply. I figured he was out celebrating his success. New Year's Day dawned gray and cold. I scrolled through social media over coffee, and there it was, a post from him, beaming in a floral shirt, ocean waves crashing in the background. Ringing in the new year in Hawaii. Grateful for the opportunities. #blessed. More photos popped up. Him lounging by a pool, sipping tropical drinks, arms draped around a group of strangers. My stomach twisted. I dialed his number. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Blocked. "What the fuck?" I muttered, slamming my phone down. The betrayal hit like a wave, crashing over me. That money, my security, was funding his vacation. I felt exposed, vulnerable. No savings meant I'd have to max out credit cards for basics, maybe even ask friends for loans. This wasn't just financial ruin. It was a personal gutting. We'd been through thick and thin, but this was theft. I fired off messages from every app one had. "You blocked me? After taking $15K? Your promise." Silence. Days turned into a week, and the posts kept coming. Him ziplining, dining at fancy resorts. I reached out to mutual friends. "Have you heard from him?" One texted back, "He's traveling. Business trip, I think." Lies. I knew it was a blow-off. Anger boiled over. I couldn't sleep, replaying every conversation. He'd said, "I promise," like it meant something. Flashbacks to our past flooded in. Him borrowing my bike as a kid and returning it wrecked, grinning and saying, "Oops, sorry." Or in college, when he borrowed my laptop for a week and came back with it pawned for party cash. I'd forgiven him then, chalking it up to youth. But this was different. This was calculated. Desperate, I hired a lawyer, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd handled small claims before. "Breach of contract," she said. "With the texts and that note, we can sue for the full amount, plus punitive damages for fraud. It cost me a chunk, but I was beyond caring. I gathered evidence, screenshots of his promises, bank records of the transfer, even emails where he'd hyped the business as guaranteed. The lawsuit filed, and suddenly he resurfaced. Texts poured in. "Bro, calm down. It's a misunderstanding. The business had delays, but I'm good for it. Unblock me so we can talk." I ignored them, letting the process unfold. Court was set for spring, and I prepped affidavits, reliving the sting. In the meantime, life unraveled. Work suffered. I missed deadlines, too distracted. A date I had lined up fizzled when I vented about it over drinks. "Sounds toxic," she said, ghosting me afterward. Friends tried to help, but it felt isolating. I was 37, supposed to have it figured out, but here I was, broke and betrayed by the one person I thought I could count on. The trial was a circus. He showed up in a suit, looking contrite, his lawyer arguing it was a gift or family loan with no firm deadline.